Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and we're honored and privileged to have a great United States Senator with us, Jim Banks, from the great state of Indiana, a military man, a lieutenant in the Navy, saw experience out in Afghanistan, members of very important committees on armed services, banking, housing, urban affairs, education, health. Senator, welcome to Let the Record Show. We're delighted to have you here.
Hey, it's great to be with all of you, Judge, and what an exciting time to be a United States Senator in this great country. It's great to share some time with you and talk about it today.
Eric, you're a witness.
Jim, welcome to the show. I'm proud to say that I was an early supporter of yours, and proud to be able to count you as a friend. Let's talk about what is on everybody's mind right now, that one big, beautiful bill that's supposedly going to come out of the Congress to eventually find its way to the president's desk to be signed. So we want to talk about the status of that. Where is it? And I guess start with what are the hurdles that a Congress is currently trying to get over?
Well, Eric, great to be with you, and appreciate your friendship and your support, and especially early in my campaign. And a couple of years ago, when I was running for the Senate, we were in the minority and the House. I was running for the United States Senate. We had Joe Biden in the White House, and we were a long ways away from 2017, which was my first year in Congress. I was elected to the House 2016 with President Trump. And that first big thing that we did in that Congress was passing the Trump tax cuts. And now we're at the point where those tax cuts expire on working class Americans and on small business pass-through businesses in Indiana. We're talking about family farms and those small town businesses in places like where I live and small town Indiana. So we're at a dangerous moment. I believe if we fail, if we flop on extending tax cuts on working class Americans, Republicans will lose the midterms next year. We'll lose the White House in 4 years, and frankly, maybe we deserve to if we fail at this critical moment and task of extending those tax cuts. I was just at the White House just a little bit ago, meeting with officials at the White House about the reconciliation bill and what do we have to do to get it done. Right now, the House is in the middle of marking up in the committees the meat of it. I mean, we passed the budget, which is the bones of it. Now the reconciliation process starts, which is the meat of it. And there's different parts of it. There's extending the tax cuts, which I talked about. There's spending cuts. I mean, I think we can get $1 trillion or more of spending cuts out of all of this. And
could you talk about where those would come from?
One big place, Eric, where that will come from are are reforms in the by the way of work requirements on Medicaid, and then go after wage fraud and abuse in Medicaid. You're not cutting Medicaid. You're not cutting services to Americans who are using Medicaid. You're making reforms, and work requirements is very politically popular. I mean, if you're staying at home and you can work, you don't have dependents that you're taking care of, like sick parents or sick kids, and you're not working, you shouldn't get Medicaid. You should prove that you're out looking for a job, and there are reasonable ways to do that. And that cuts hundreds of billions of dollars by requiring people to go back to work and be in the workforce and live healthy and productive lives. Good for the country, and it happens to save hundreds of billions of dollars. So
well,
that's on
that point,
some spending cuts.
Yeah, on that point, I think it's important for listeners to remember that Medicaid was expanded under Obamacare to include people that weren't originally supposed to be covered by Medicaid. It includes working age, healthy men to be able to go on Medicaid without any sort of work requirement. And what complicated that was the federal government under Obamacare would cover 90% of the Medicaid expansion for healthy men who aren't working, as opposed to 70 would only cover 70% of the cost for single moms or the indigent who are supposed to have originally been covered by Medicaid, so that there was an incentive for states to give more money to healthy non-working men. So
you nail it. That's so true. And by the way, people in real America, where I come from, they know it. They get it. They see people around them who aren't working and who are living off the government dime with our tax dollars, all the while they're going to work every day. My dad is a retired factory worker, made axles as a union factory worker all of his life, and he complains about why should he go to work and sweat through the workday in a factory while people are living at home off of our tax dollars, and that's the fairness of it, and that's one good place where we can make some significant gains. But during COVID and the pandemic, the massive expansion of the federal government, $37 trillion in debt, we have to come out of this with this reconciliation bill that doesn't just extend the Trump tax cuts, but cuts $1 trillion or more in spending. And then, Eric, the last part of it is really important. The reconciliation bill also provides a boost to our military, to modernize our military, to focus the military on new investments in sophisticated technologies and innovation that we need to deter a war, or, God forbid, ever fight a war and beat China if we ever get ourselves into a situation like that. So there's a big boost of $150 billion or a little bit more in defense spending, and then also supporting the efforts to secure the border and the deportation efforts of violent, illegal criminals in our country that we need to fund as well. That's all wrapped up in this one big, beautiful bill, this reconciliation package. It's moving through the House, being marked up in the House, and then it will come to the Senate. My prediction, I don't know this, I'm only predicting, but once the House, which has this very small majority, passes their version of the reconciliation bill, I think we'll quickly pass it in the Senate, because we have a 53-seat majority, a bigger margin to work with, and we should be able to get it done as quickly as possible.
Well, in the spirit of the announcement of a new pope today, when do we expect to see the white smoke coming out of the Capitol building announcing the reconciliation package?
Well, it has to happen soon. I mean, I'm concerned that it's not happening fast enough. So this week, some of the House committees, they've started and then they stopped, and they're trying to work their way through some of these complicated. You have some of the more moderate Republicans who don't want to face political backlash for cutting Medicaid, but we have to go out and sell to the American people. We're not cutting Medicaid. Work requirements means that we're putting people back to work, and we're cutting waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. And that's very reasonable, and I think it'll be very politically popular. So that's the big fight in the House. And the Senate, we're very focused on doing what we can to make these tax cuts permanent on working-class families and small businesses, and it's going to take a little bit more work to do that and find spending cuts across the board to do that, but I think we can get that done.
So just shifting gears to the Trump tariffs. So today it was announced that the administration had worked out an outline of a deal with the UK. So how important do you think that announcement is? How important is it that we have an agreement with the UK? One of the ironies we were just talking about on the show before you came on is that one of the theories behind the tariffs was to right trade imbalances, but the UK is one of those countries with whom we have a trade surplus. So, how important do you think the announcement of the outline of a trade deal with the UK is?
Well, I think it's really good news, and hopefully it snowballs from there. I mean, the Republican senators have been meeting with Secretary Bessent and Ambassador Jameson Greer and others who are involved in these deals, and they're all telling us that once the first one happens, there's going to be a lot more that follows. And President Trump, I give him credit for this. I mean, he's the first. I think the history books will write about this. He's the first president, at least in my lifetime, who understands that trade deals are statecraft. I mean, the way that we approach these trade deals affects our diplomacy around the world. And President Trump is using the leverage of the tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs, with countries to try to. And this is something I think Republicans are doing a poor job of explaining. We've got to do a better job of this, but explaining that we're diminishing China's role in the world so that America and our allies the West can rise once again. And that, we're seeing that happen. I mean, the trade deal with the UK, I mean, China is a threat to the UK. China's a threat to America. And when we're working together and sticking together, and it's symbolic that this is the first deal that the president's announcing, then the world's a much safer place because of it.
Jesse, questions for Senator Banks?
Senator Banks, thank you so much. I want to thank you for your service, your military service, your service in Congress, and now your outstanding work in the Senate. And you know what? One of the things I do, and I guess from New York, is I appreciate your direct and straight talk. You're very direct on as you deliberate and as you in your tenure. But what I want to focus on is something that you've been speaking about, and that's declaring fentanyl a chemical and biological weapon. Because with the open borders, which is another war, it's a war on fentanyl, and with the open borders over the last 4 years under the Biden administration, we've seen not only human trafficking, but fentanyl has been basically corroding our communities. It's basically made every neighborhood a border town, through the southern border and the northern border. So I'd like to maybe just touch upon a little bit of how you see fentanyl being designated a chemical and biological weapon, and how we need more deliberate actions, whether it's been the use of our military or other actions, to stop the flow of fentanyl into our streets.
Yeah, so well put. And if we recognize that fentanyl is a weapon that's being used against us by our enemies, then that means that we are engaging in wartime-like tactics to stop it. And I think that's why this is important. We know that the Chinese Communist Party is responsible for the ingredients of fentanyl that come to our southern border, and then fentanyl floods into America with the help of Mexican drug cartels who are colluding with the Chinese Communist Party. And we should treat that as an act of war because of the so many Americans who are dying from fentanyl poisonings and overdoses in America. And I can tell you, from coming from a blue collar working class state like Indiana, I have small towns all over my state, big cities like Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. You go to any community in Indiana, and you're not going to find somebody somewhere who hasn't been affected by this, by the drug crisis that's a direct result of the Chinese Communist Party flooding our country with fentanyl with their partnership with the Mexican drug cartels. So if you declare it as an act of war, then that means that we use our military to stop it. And I think this is something President Trump is focused on doing, using the National Guard and military resources at the southern border to secure the border and block this type of activity. And it's already making a big difference. I mean, President Trump has already stopped 95% of illegal border crossings and 99% of the so-called gotaways that coming into our country in just a short period of time. Turns out that we didn't need new laws. We just needed a new president to be elected to make that happen through executive orders. So now what President Trump has done is declaring a national emergency because he's right to do this because of fentanyl flowing over the southern border. It means that we have the ability to do things to block it and stop it. And I want to back the president up by an act of Congress declaring that fentanyl is being used as an act of war to to provide him that kind of backup to stop it.
Well, it helps that the cartels have been designated a foreign terrorist organization. That should give us a lot of leeway and latitude to go after them.
Well, think about it. I mean, how could Joe Biden and the Democrats over the last 4 years completely ignore that fact? I mean, it's almost like they were complicit in it, like they were okay with it. I mean, how could you be okay with that? How can you look at the Mexican drug cartels and not see them as a enemy of the United States of America? And yet,
agreed.
The Biden administration lifted a lot of those designations and allowed these criminal gangs to kill Americans. I mean, the end result is that Americans died because of that weak posture of the Biden administration, and President Trump is turning that around.
Well, they also lifted the designation from the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization. So if you're going to lift that, then who's a terrorist?
Yeah, it's just crazy.
People who go to school boards.
Right.
Yes,
School
people
boards.
who showed up in Virginia school boards.
That's right.
Domestic terrorists.
Senator, let me ask you this. 2 questions. First, what do you consider the greatest success of the Trump administration? Related to that, what do you consider so far the biggest problem with the Trump administration? And then the second question is, what keeps you up at night? What are you worried about most about?
That's 3 questions. That's 3 questions.
It was 1, A, and B,
Is that what it is?
and then it was 2.
Well, and frankly, all 3 of those questions it's the same answer. I mean, if China is the biggest threat to the American way of life, to the security of my kids and my grandkids' ability to pursue the American dream in this country, if they're the biggest threat militarily and economically to the United States of America, then I believe President Trump's legacy will be written in what he's doing with these tariffs and the long-term effects of reorienting global trade to diminish China's role in the world and to raise up America into its rightful place as the strong country that we expect it to be. Now, what I'm concerned about, to answer question 1B, is at the same time, egg prices today are still the highest that they've ever been. It costs too much to fill up a tank of gas, and cost of living in the country is still too high. And tariffs are disruptive. Of course, it's short-term pain, but we have to go out and sell to the American people that the long-term impact of this, the end result, which we hope will be sooner than later, is what I described. That we restore the strong made in America economy. Indiana is the top steel state in the country. We're the top manufacturing state per capita. We make things in Indiana. We're the crossroads of America. We're going to benefit from that in the long run, but it's a challenge for so many families today. And I think Republicans are doing a poor job of going out and selling that message as effectively as we can. Yes, what keeps me up at night? I mean, it's wrapped up in that. The Chinese are developing sophisticated weapons and military technologies that surpass our capabilities, and we're not moving fast enough at the Pentagon and across the board to innovate and come up with those autonomous weapons and quantum computing and AI and all these things that really are the future of defense and the future of keeping America safe and secure. And I know President Trump's focused on that because he appointed a lot of people who understand that at the Pentagon that come from innovative new companies like Palantir and Anduril and SpaceX, and the role that Elon has played in a lot of this. I mean, these are innovators that understand that America's long-term future is going to be wrapped up in innovation, and we have to do everything that we can to spur it.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.
Let me ask you this question, and I say this as a former judge and prosecutor and attorney. These national injunctions, which I believe, respectfully to my colleagues on the federal bench, I was on the state Supreme Court, are totally over their skis. It's one thing when you have particular parties before you in a particular geographic district, which is the U.S. District Court in which you sit, but to have these nationwide injunctions which impact and impair the ability of the President of the United States to carry out national policy, and the way they go forum shopping and judge picking to do this is an awful situation. It's detrimental to the interests of the United States. We really do have an incursion and invasion by people who should not be here, who are a substantial threat to the security of our citizens, and that concerns me. I would hope there's a case coming up in the Supreme Court in the middle of May in the birthright case, which is going to raise this national injunction issue. So hopefully the Supreme Court will do the right thing and declare these national injunctions invalid. If they don't do that, then it seems to me it's up to the Congress of the United States, your former body, the House of Representatives, and your current body, the U.S. Senate, to pass legislation reining in these runaway judges. What are your thoughts on that?
Judge, you're more of an expert, and you say it better than I could. But this is, I know people at home are disheartened every time the courts strike down something important that President Trump is trying to do, and it makes it that much more important that Congress does its job, that we back up the president, make these executive orders permanent law when it comes to especially border security and when it comes to the rule of law and all the important issues that President Trump is focused on. We have to pass laws in Congress to make them permanent so they can't be struck down by the courts simply because they're an executive order. Now, Joe Biden got away with it every day. I mean, the executive orders coming out of the Biden White House that weren't struck down by the courts, and now you're seeing the opposite. I mean, obviously this is disheartening, and we have to do more to stop it. Ted Cruz, my colleague in the Senate, of course, is very focused on this, and someone who I look to that's leading the way to hold the courts accountable and to do what we need to do on that front, and I'll be following his lead.
Senator, I want to thank you very much on behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself for being on Let the Record Show. Your comments were informative, instructive, and we're lucky to have people like you in the United States Senate. We're in tough times, and we need strong, able, common-sense leadership, and you're one of the leaders of that perspective. Thanks again, Senator, for joining us.
Yeah, Jim, thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
This is Let the Record Show. We've just had Senator Jim Banks of Indiana, a great United States Senator, a great patriot. We'll be back in a moment with the final segment of this week's Let the Record Show. Please stay tuned for more important and interesting conversation.
Let the Record Show is on the air.